Here we go. Third one in 4 days.
Wow.
Not for me.
CJ, like,
Churning them
I didn't
out.
sign up for this.
Yeah. Well, there's so many years of I didn't sign up for this on post-draft pods. So, we all, everyone, oh shit. Yeah. Fuck. I was trying to grab the link and I actually started the stream.
Been there.
Just wanted the link. How's everybody doing?
So good.
Not bad. Not bad. You guys watch Black Mirror?
Watched the first 3 episodes of the new season. Thought it was interesting that aside from the first one, it's not very technology. It feels like leaned more into straight up horror than fear of the future type thing, which makes sense given that the future is moving rather quickly,
Yeah, that makes sense. Second episode's definitely more of a horror than anything.
I like the one with the guy from Breaking Bad. I enjoyed 2 and 3. What's his name?
Aaron Paul.
Aaron Paul. Yeah. I didn't like the first one.
The Netflix
Joan
one?
is awful. I didn't like the Joan is awful one. Mike, you seen Black Mirror? I know you're not a horror guy. Yeah.
No, I don't watch it.
I do
It's
think
still on. I feel like it's been on for 10 years.
They took a little bit of a break. Did the Bandersnatch thing.
Yep. The Bandersnatch thing, which I did not like at all. I think if you go back and watch the initial episodes, I remember it was actually a Twitter follower who gave me the first 4 before it was on TV here. It was only on BBC. Just gave them to me to download. I remember watching the first one on a plane and like sweating on the plane because of how intense it was. I thought it was, the longer it's gone on, the more hit or miss it is, but I think it's really good in the beginning. We ready? I'm ready.
Do it.
Let's do it. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS. Brought to you by LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. Big Barker, fucking dog, right on time. Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Get yours at bigbarker.com/Ricky. Body Bio. Get 20% off any Body Bio order. I just texted Mike from Body Bio to see if the new promo code is available. I'm not going to mention it until the Body Bio commercial, but there is a new promo code. I'll mention them both just in case one of them doesn't work, but that's coming up. Exciting new promo code with Body Bio. And Stateside Urban Craft Vodka, home of Surfside, an official sponsor of the Corner 3 newsletter with Zoe, statesidevodka.com. On the show today, a final wrap on the Sixers draft activities, lack of moves, whiteboard, what happened around the NBA, a fun new fact about James Harden's return that I had not considered, and I don't think we've considered on the pod, addressed by a voicemailer. We have not got to Jonah Bolden's return, which I need to hear you on. I would like to talk about Lou Williams' retirement, and we have just so many emails and voicemails, and we are truly heading into, we have one more week, we have free agency, and then true off-season. I did mention stateside, summertime, Surfside is good for summertime. Surfside, if you've tried the original iced tea and vodka, just right amount of sweetness, 100 calories, few grams of sugar, perfect, no carbonation because iced tea should not have bubbles, but you should try the other flavors. They have a variety pack right now on statesidevodka.com where you could try the original, the peach tea and vodka, the lemonade and vodka, and the iced tea lemonade vodka. I still have the original as number 1 with the iced tea lemonade and vodka as number 2. statesidevodka.com. You got to be 21. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Haven't reminded you in a while, but if you happen to be watching on YouTube, please subscribe. We'd love to get to 12,000 subscribers now that we've passed 11,000. And coming up, July 12th, a special 10th anniversary Rights to Ricky Sanchez episode as we celebrate Ricky X with a couple of special guests, some memories, a couple of very special merch items which are coming out. Abby has done a fantastic print that we'll put out, some stickers, as well as the first ever Ricky long sleeve tee. You'll be able to get all that stuff at Kinetic, but that's all coming in July. Looking forward to it. 10 years. Still dead inside. Inside, I am dead. Alive, I am living. Without any further ado, Amos and the Chef.
Laddie, sweetie, the man is here.
Say the name. I say the name. I say the name.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Rights to Ricky Sanchez forever.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who is organizing a coup in Russia as we speak. That is one Mike Levin.
Now that the draft's over, I got a lot of time to do my hobbies.
Yep. Especially with the strike, draft over, strike. So
I gotta find-
coup in Russia.
I got to find new stuff to do.
So
Find new areas of expertise, and I think that like Sharp became the China guy, and I'm going to be the Russia guy.
I imagine you and Zoe, please don't take offense in that I did not listen to the you and Zoe draft night pod, but I imagine you and Zoe talked at least a little bit about the two-way signings and the Exhibit 10 signing. Would just like to go back into them quickly, give sort of for anyone who did not, if wants more in depth, you could go to that pod, but sort of touch on all those guys. I did watch YouTube of all of those guys and touch on the whiteboard scandal, which continues to brew as well. Was there anyone, this is just me asking you now, was there anyone of the four guys they signed after the draft that you were particularly excited about?
Yeah, Ricky Council for sure.
Okay. Because of the name, obviously.
The name helps.
Yep.
The fact that his brothers are both named
Ricky.
Ricky also.
Yeah.
Usually when you're Ricky Council the fourth, you're the fourth in generationally.
Yep.
That wasn't the case here, and I think that's unique and great. And we actually didn't talk too much about the play because we were just kind of surprised by it. It happened right as we signed on. But we could talk a little bit more about that. I want to. He's only 21. He gets downhill. He's super athletic, 6'5", 6'9" wingspan. Athletic.
Seemed processy from when I was watching him.
Yeah, I mean, he's powerful, throws down dunks, sort of like a more skilled, way more skilled Rajon Tucker, if you remember Rajon from previous Sixers years of not playing that much.
Incredible dunker, Rajon Tucker, and Ricky Council also looks to be a great dunker.
Yeah, he really wants to put it down on you and goes off of 1 foot rather than 2 feet, which scouts like because it means he doesn't have to slow down to load into it. Really good handle for a guy, a wing type like that, especially in isolation. The threat of his drive and how fast he is and how much he can just cram on you really sets up his pull-up jumper, which he releases very high. Right now he's more of a scorer than a shooter, which obviously in the NBA will not be his role. So he has to continue getting better off of a catch and shoot, which right now is definitely his swing skill, as it is for most role players like that. He only hit 30% on catch and shoot, which isn't good enough. And it doesn't look as smooth off the catch as it does off the dribble, which is kind of a fun herky-jerky type thing. But off the catch is not so good. But he did shoot. If you're optimistic, he shot 81% from the line on high volume. He gets to the line a lot, which is great. So maybe in time he can become a reliable catch and shoot guy because the rest of his game really is an NBA player. Vecini said he was the best on-ball defender at the Combine, which is good to hear. There's really no reason that with his athleticism and wingspan that he couldn't at least be average there. My nephew Austin loves Ricky Council for whatever reason. He just loves Arkansas guys. I don't know why, but it's fun for me to. He texted it to me. He's very excited. And the Ricky Council does sound like a Fellowship of the Ring version of this podcast.
Yeah. Well.
He's good. It was a really, the Sixers jumped right on after making no picks to insult me and everything I stand for. They did at least jump right into two of the most impressive undrafted free agent guys right away in Council and Jaquavion.
Okay, so it was interesting having watched all of the YouTube on the guys. Jaquavion Smith seemed.
Wait, what do you think of Ricky Council first?
I just seemed super athletic, but it was so many of the highlights were him just dunking. It was hard for me to tell. It just seemed like, oh, this is a great athlete, and it was a guy that seemed like a guy that we would have drafted in the second round during the process era, waiting around for him to be a really good ball player. But I didn't, from a skill standpoint, I had a hard time assessing what I thought of him. Smith seemed kind of little to me. It was actually Azuolas Tubelis, who seemed like I couldn't figure out what position he played, and he looked like he was built like a 4, but sort of played like a 3, but just seemed really skilled, like he knew what the fuck he was doing. He was the guy that actually impressed me the most from a YouTube perspective, even though he didn't seem like super athletic or whatever. And Marcus Bagley reminded me of Chris Middleton.
I mean, Marcus Bagley is obviously Marvin Bagley's younger brother, and in 3 years at Arizona State, he played like 12 games or something.
Okay.
I don't consider him like a
real thing.
A real thing at all.
Okay. So what about
Tubelis?
Tubelis?
Well, Tubelis I watched a ton of because my writing partner Patrick, who's been on the podcast, is a U of A guy. He's 6'9" power forward from Lithuania. He played 3 years at Arizona. A lot of successful Arizona teams. He really produced at the college level. Very skilled big man. He was 20.9 rebounds on 57% shooting, and it's a good pass from the high post. They would play him with another big man. In this year, it was Omar Ballo, who played center and is much more of like a traditional, like sturdy center. And so there's a lot of like passing from the high post that Tubelis would do. He's talented in transition on the move. He's got he can handle a little bit. He can push. He can finish under the rim. But he's really not an elite athlete. He only had 5 dunks last year. He's not a consistent stretch 5 option. In 3 years, he only shot 112 threes, and that was like descending from year to year, so it's not like he's doing more of it. He was under 30% from 3, and like defensively, there's just absolutely nowhere to hide him.
Right.
He is just totally drawing dead. He can't move his feet on the perimeter, and he can't protect the rim. He's a fine rebounder as a 4, but I really don't see it with Tubelis. I don't think he's an NBA athlete. I don't think he's an NBA ball mover. He's fine to be there. I'm sure he's going to play hard and like be a smart player, and maybe just as the third two-way spot, you just want a guy who can like bang and knows what he's doing. But I don't think there's an NBA player in there.
And what about Smith?
Smith is really interesting. He's definitely small, 6'2" with like a 6'3" or 6'3" maybe with a 6'7" wingspan. But his frame is so thin. But to be that thin, he weighed like, I think he came into the combine like 165, which is just like not.
At 6'2", yeah.
That's not what an NBA player weighs. So sort of like Bones Highlandy in that sense, like really, really thin. But he explodes out of it. Like he's athletic, he's shifty, he wants to dunk on you. He's got pretty dazzling like hesitation crossovers. When he's on, he really can control the tempo as a scorer. Like he's a real like jitterbug scorer type. The pull up and the step back jumper lead you to believe like there's more upside to keep untapping if he can tighten everything up. Right now he's like really, really streaky as a shooter. He can get really hot and win you a game or go cold for like several games in a row at NC State. He played alongside another point guard who is older than him in Jarkel Joyner, who just signed a 2-way also. But helped him to become a better shooter off the catch. He shot 41% off the catch last year, which is a really good number for a guy that's traditionally seen as more of an on-ball threat. But he only shot in 2 years. He only shot 43% on twos, and that's really, really low.
Yeah,
that's really low. And it's because he's small, and some of the shot selection stuff, and sometimes some of the fact that like NC State didn't have good spacing, all that stuff. which is not uncommon at the college level. But he did get better year over year at defense, at distributing, at finishing at the rim. And so there's a lot of like warts there, but the improvement gives you hope that that there's more to come and he could become like a Jordan Clarkson type of player. I really, really like this two-way signing. Like if neither of these guys would have been, if the Sixers traded up to like 38, neither of these guys would have been like, oh, 100%. I'm willing to like ride for these guys and stick my reputation, my sterling reputation on the line for them. But I like them both as one of the two-way spots. And randomly, they're both from North Carolina, which I find interesting.
I think it's fair to mention on the second round pick thing that there were no picks that were sold. And it does seem, given the trades recently, that
true. It was all just like for future picks.
Yeah.
When they traded
it does seem, given the trades recently, that the era of not valuing picks, that the CBA may actually increase the value of picks, where for a while it seemed like, let's see if this makes sense. For a while, it just seemed like picks were currency, that they were like, this is what a star player is worth. It's worth this many picks, but nobody even really thought about the value of the pick. I think that the value of the pick has gone up because those spots, those low salary spots, are going to get more valuable. So I just thought it was interesting that there were no picks sold. So it's not one of those years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good draft year for sure. It's a bummer that the Sixers couldn't. Clearly, per the whiteboards, they wanted to. But yeah, I think it's having second round picks is just like something to trade. And so when Boston kept trading down and picking up future picks, it just means like, oh, we have stuff for the future that we can use in some trade, rather than like, oh, we can only add 2 second round picks to this. If we can add 5, then that sounds like a big number that people are more willing to do. So it is an example, the Sixers making 0 picks this year, making 1 pick last year that they traded. This is an example of how asset depleted the Sixers have become over the last 6 years. Just like death by 1,000 cuts and poor decisions and having to undo poor decisions. And then they're just like pretty barren. And the thing that we talked about with Zoe on the podcast last time was like, you look at the Sixers roster and the depth chart and you see Jaden Springer, and that's it. Like, that's just it as far as young, tradable rookie contract guys that could be enticing in a trade if you believe in. And so Jaquavion and Ricky Council are examples of, we need these guys to become 13th men off the bench like next season, that could possibly grow into more, or could possibly just entice them into something else. Like the Warriors just traded Patrick Baldwin into the Wizards in that deal. And it's like, there's just something that the other team can go like, oh, that's a young guy that we might believe in. Like they just there has to be a pipeline, and there hasn't been for now a very long number of years. And they need, especially with the third two-way spot, they really just need to start using it.
We're going to talk about the whiteboard briefly. And one thing on the whiteboard that I don't know if you brought up that we got an email about right after we talk about LL Pavorsky Jewelers. Mike, we got a voicemail to 833 Lickface about LL Pavorsky.
Oh, Spike, Mike, and the intern guy. Name is Ben, first time, long time. Just wanted to report on my recent experience with the first and only sponsor of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast, LL Pavorsky. So I was gifted my grandfather's wedding ring by my dad a couple weeks ago. And it's a really old ring. The band was bent, cracked. It was like really dirty. It was missing a diamond. Emailed LL like 2 weeks before Father's Day and was like, hey, I just got this as a gift for my father. It's really important to him. I want to like take care of it. I want to repair it, clean it, get the diamond replaced, all that. Like to get it done before Father's Day. LL like instantly responds. I set up an appointment for the next day, drop it off. He has it done in like a week and a half before Father's Day. He's like giving me all these recommendations on what to do. He like replaced the band because the old one was really thin, and was like, he showed me through that little magnifying glass thing that was like cracked in multiple places. But replaced the band, like cleaned it all up, put a satin finish on the top. replaced the diamond. It's beautiful now. Showed my dad at Father's Day. Thought he was going to cry. Great guy, that LL. Told him I'll probably be back in a couple years. Not getting engaged yet, but I did recently receive a picture of an engagement ring that my girlfriend said she liked. So
that's how it starts.
Maybe be doing that sooner than I thought. Anyway, love the pod. Mike, I hope you got a good therapy session out of that Bill Simmons, Doc Rivers podcast. Seems like you needed it. Keep doing what you're doing, guys. Thanks. Hey, guys, Ben again. Just wanted to point out something I missed in my last call. It is so incredibly obvious upon meeting LL that he is one of us. I think like the first thing he said to me when I walked through the door at the first appointment, he was like, so Nick Nurse, huh? What do you think? And then second appointment, when I'm picking the ring up, he like immediately he's like, so Nuggets win a ring. And I was like, yeah, man, sucks. He's like, yeah, only good thing about it is Ish Smith got one. So, look on the bright side. Really just incredible that he is a rookie guy through and through. Definitely recommend everyone go to him for their engagement rings or, any other jewelry needs you got. I certainly will be going back. Thanks, guys.
I think there is a Ship of Theseus question to be had about that ring, whether LL just sold him an entirely new ring and called it the older ring. Sounded like everything was replaced, the band and the diamond. What else is there on a ring?
He's got so much more.
If you'd like to make an appointment with LL, 215-627-2252. Email him, lee@llpavorsky.com, or tweet at him at @LLPavorsky. Sports our charities, Mama T's Community Fridge and Providence Animal Center. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
Come see his magnifying glass thing.
So there are a couple of things on the leaked whiteboard that people made mention of. One, that Harden was sort of in the lineup, as was Tobias Harris. So was Paul Reed. They were in red, but they weren't listed with the free agents. They were listed, in the depth chart.
Well, Tobias wasn't in red.
Oh, he wasn't?
No.
Oh, well, he wouldn't be in red. Right. But Harden was in red. Paul Reed was in red. Right.
And Petrusev was in red.
Right. So we got an email from Matt, and he said, I may have missed it, but did you guys discuss the news that Filip Petrusev wants to come over this year? Seems like he has decent stats. Could he contribute as a rookie, especially since we have no picks this year? What do you think about Petrusev? I don't remember him at all, really.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty similar to Bellis, honestly.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more like straight up a center, and maybe a better rebounder. But like, I don't know. I never saw it with him. The hope is that he became more of a stretch five guy over the time since they drafted him 2 years ago. And he's going to come and play summer league, and we'll see how he looks and all that stuff. But I don't know. I don't think he's really an NBA player. He did shoot. I'm looking at it right now. This year, on 97 shot attempts from three, he made 41 of them.
Well, that's a good number,
which is pretty good. But it's not super high volume. And so I would love them. Obviously, would love and have loved and have wanted a fucking pick and pop big, stretch five for the love of God. And the Sixers have found a way behind Joel Embiid to not have a stretch five and also not have a lob threat. And it's just like, can you please pick one? They don't do it. And B-Ball Paul, God bless him, is going to shoot 40% from three in the G League, and hopefully it will be allowed to shoot threes under Nick Nurse. But he's not a lob threat either. Like, I just need someone to be either a lob threat or a true stretch five. One of them has to happen. So if Petrusev can do that and show in summer league that he's willing to do that, then great. But I don't fully see it. Not a guy I'm super excited about.
So to wrap up the Sixers draft night stuff and the Harden being on the board, we got a voicemail that I thought was interesting, as we have never addressed it. I don't believe it's been addressed in the press, and it's actually incredibly interesting to think about. 833 Lickface.
Hey, Spike, Mike, and CJ. This is Bob from Northeast Philly. I don't know why Mike keeps saying that Harden opted into his deal. He has till the June 29th to do that. If I was Daryl, I would just say, hey, our only offer to you is the opt-in. You either take that for 36.5 for one more year, or go ahead, hit free agency, because there are no other deals out there for him. I think at that point he'd have to opt in. Then you let him and Tobias come off the books next year at the same time. Also, please stop saying that he had an excellent season. He's god awful on defense, and on offense, yeah, he averaged 10 or 11 assists a game. 7 of them are just handing the ball to Joel Embiid at the elbow and him making a jump shot. Anyone could do that. Literally anybody. The lineup with Maxey, Melton, Tobias, Tucker, and Embiid was better than the lineup with Harden, Maxey, Tobias, Tucker, and Embiid this year. They were better without Harden. Thank you.
Now, forgetting about I think we all said that he was opting out, but every report has been James Harden plans to opt out.
Yeah, intends to.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
So if there is no good offer out there for him, and it's possible that the Sixers offer, let's say, is 2 years, $50 million, and he has 1 year, $36 million on the table, it's entirely possible that the Sixers do not have a choice whether James Harden returns next year. He can just not opt out.
I think if he opted in, they would have a party.
I'm just saying. Well, I would not, but
I know
saying
to not want him back at all, but to opt in and just say, hey, we got 1 more year, and then we can decide what to do with him, and we can trade him as an expiring contract at the deadline. Like that would, I think everyone at the Sixers would be pretty happy about that.
I just think that the idea that they do not control their own destiny in this way, and if they wanted to walk from him, if that was the idea, they actually do not have that decision is not theirs. It's Harden's. And I think of all of the Harden returns situations, I agree with you. Him not opting out or opting in, whatever the verbiage is whatever what he has to do is. That aside, I think of all the Harden returns options, that is the best one. But I do think it is, alarming is the wrong word, because they clearly want him back. There's no way. They don't want to let him walk. That obviously isn't what they want to do, unfortunately. But it is interesting that is not their call, even if that's what they wanted if he opted in. I just think it's interesting because I don't think we had ever brought that up.
Just when people said he plans to opt out, I think you sort of take that as face value. I would be surprised by it. I think if he's going to sign, I don't think at his age he wants to sign simply re-sign a deal for 1 year where he has no control over what happens after. I think he'd probably rather sign a deal for less money this year, but with a player option for the following year. And for the Sixers, maybe you would want that so you have a little more maneuverability in free agency, or to sign the guys that are in red in the depth chart. I would be surprised. I'd be surprised by it.
I think the other thing is, and this became clearer as the week drew on, and that there's a very significant possibility that the roster on night 1 of the 23-24 season looks almost exactly like the roster they closed with. I think the Tobias thing is, the problem with a Tobias trade is that you need a team probably who wants to give up, I think, on some level, or at least widens the ability to trade him, is a team that is willing to just take back salary and is okay whether Tobias is good or not good, doesn't really matter to him. Just the fact that they are, they're taking whoever you need and they're willing to have it expire. But the number of teams who are in that position will only grow as the season goes on. I just think there's a limited number of teams that probably want to trade for Tobias right now, and that number will grow as teams get out of it. And I think there is a significant chance that the roster on night 1 looks exactly like the roster that we closed with against Boston.
Yeah, totally possible. A couple things about the Tobias stuff. His contract being expiring is now way more valuable than it was in previous years, just because of the looming CBA, people wanting to get off money, the fact that the second apron is so restrictive and prohibitive. And again, the problem, like if Tobias just totally sucked and I know some people think he does, but if he just totally sucked and was totally immaterial to this team and was like Davis Bertans or something, and the Mavs just like simply don't want him around, then you would figure out a way to be like, we got to get off him. But any Tobias situation needs to come back with better, more helpful players in the Sixers situation. And you can't make a decision on what kinds of players those would be until you know if James Harden is coming back. And until you know how long he's coming back for and all that stuff. So they're a little bit frozen in the Tobias stuff. 3 of the Tobias destinations that I projected, Golden State, Dallas, and Washington, are gone because Jordan Poole was traded, Davis Bertans was traded, and Brad Beal was traded. But I'm looking at Tobias for Markelle Fultz and Gary Harris trade in the event of a Harden walks type of deal.
Oh boy, the podcast that night would be one of a kind.
Because Orlando just took a big point guard in Anthony Black. They have a little bit of a logjam there. I would also try to pry away Chuma Okeke, who hasn't had much time to succeed over there, and I would love to bring him back over here. Gary Harris has always felt like a Sixer in some way. So that would be fun. And Markelle has gotten way better, and if he's playing alongside Maxey, he can defend, he can attack the rim, he's big, he's athletic. He's older, he's more mature now. Bring him home. It wouldn't be like a thrilling trade aside from the narrative part, because like Markel's just obviously a role player, and Gary Harris is and has gotten worse and is pretty old too, but certainly a little more fit there between those guys.
Well, to your point about Tobias being valuable because teams want to get off of money, the other side of that is that the Sixers are then taking on that money that somebody wants to get off of.
For sure. And that was the concept of the Jordan Poole trade.
One. Yeah.
Or the Lonzo Ball trade, who Karnisovas, who runs the Magic or the Bulls, has said we don't expect him to play for the season. God, what a really poorly run franchise the Chicago Bulls are.
Yeah.
Real bad.
Yikes. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by Big Barker Dog Beds. You heard my dog going fucking nuts. He was going fucking nuts for the Big Barker dog bed. He hears me say Big Barker, he gets excited. It's the only real dog bed on the market. It's the only dog bed that's going to keep your dog healthier. It's the only dog bed made specifically engineered by experts to keep your dog's joints happy, healthy, less creaky, especially as your dog gets older. Stop fucking around. Get a Big Barker dog bed. Go to bigbarker.com/Ricky. Bigbarker.com/Ricky. We've seen Sixers players, not through us, with Big Barkers for their dogs. Tobias had a Big Barker. B-Ball Paul, Big Barker. I think TJ Covington, the history of players having their dogs sleep on Big Barkers. And those players, they know they're big, right? They need a supportive mattress. If they're not, and they need to be athletic, they need to be able to run around. They need a supportive mattress. So does your dog. It's the only one that does it. There's a study by Penn Vet to prove it. And by the way, not just for big dogs. For small dogs too. There's the Barker Jr., all the way up to the extra large Big Barker. Go to bigbarker.com/Ricky. You get the Big Barker dog bed, 2 processed pup patches, and you will be certified as a person who cares about and loves their dog. And you can only do that by getting a Big Barker. 10-year warranty. The foam doesn't flatten or they replace it for free. 1-year at-home trial. If you don't like it and you don't want it, they will give you a full refund within a year. They'll even pay for the shipping. Handmade in the USA. Big Barker dog beds. So the rest of the NBA stuff, the last time we talked about the Celtics and Porzingis, we were not aware that it was Marcus Smart. It was funny. I had actually mentioned that I thought there was, and I still think that there's another trade there somewhere, but they end up getting 2 firsts and Kristaps Porzingis for Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart has been in trade rumors for years. It's not incredibly surprising. Also, him going to Memphis is pretty interesting because he feels like a very Grizzly type player. It's a weird trade to me for the Celtics. I don't think the addition of Kristaps is weird, and I don't think the subtraction of Smart is weird. It just seems like they are missing a very big thing. Like they've filled one hole, and they've created another one. I wonder how they move forward, because something seems missing to me. There's a part of this that seems missing.
Yeah, it seems like they could still be gearing up for a Dame trade. They are really a pretty poor. They were a poor passing team, and now they're worse. But Porzingis was good last year. Obviously, for a Wizards team, that didn't matter. They definitely like having now 3 guys who can protect the rim. Porzingis doesn't move his feet too well on the perimeter, but was definitely a good rim protector last year. And having a pick and pop threat that's obviously better than Horford at stretching the floor is helpful for them. I would have loved to find a way to get Porzingis to Portland. I think Dame with the pick and pop threat like that would have been interesting. But I'm just really happy Marcus Smart isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
He's a really good player, and I'm sure rooting for him was difficult sometimes because of like some bad shots he takes and some stupid stuff he does, whatever. But like he's just always in the right position to make a play and win the game, and like play his ass off. And he seemed like a really good guy, for a team that like has had a bunch of dickheads. And I'm just happy he's not there anymore. Like he's fucking covering Embiid. Obviously, he couldn't cover him straight up, but he just made it so hard on so many guys on the Sixers.
He's an animal.
Just seemed to constantly make a big 3 at the most inopportune time. Hated playing against Marcus Smart. Very happy he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have that guy as a Sixer. You know, incredible. And I think all of the negatives about him were probably because too much was like put on him. Like if he was a mega version of what Josh Hart is, instead of the starting point guard. Do you know what I mean? Like he ended up being the starting point guard, but he could do so many different things, both offensively and defensively. I agree. I'm glad he's not, but it does feel like there has to be something else coming there. And
yeah, I mean, Derek White is incredibly good. So he'll take on a bigger role next year, probably. Weird that they tried to trade Brogdon and then it just had to come back to them. Brogdon has had trouble with like medicals all his career. Dating back to the draft, which is why he went in the second round.
Didn't he in college? I think he had a similar injury as Embiid, but in each foot.
It was a knee thing that people were more scared about in the draft. But I don't remember the feet thing. He might have done that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's still moves to make. They have picked up a number of second round picks and they have some firsts, and they got a couple of firsts in that trade, which is crazy. They're watching them get Porzingis and first round picks for Marcus Smart, and the Wizards getting no first round picks for any of their players. Really, I know that the new front office was dealt a tough hand with the Wizards, but it felt like they were just a little bit giving up on the idea of getting fair value for those players.
And a hilarious other thing, in not quite as bad, but very Al Horford to the Sixers energy, Chris Paul ending up on the Warriors is funny for a lot of different reasons. I just think it's funny. I'm curious to see what happens. They're obviously desperate to get off that. You know, I think he could help if he understands what his role is as like a backup point guard or something, but you have to imagine it's just.
I think they're going to start him. I know people have been saying that they're not. I just feel like there's a level of respect that you give to Chris Paul, and then you stagger him and Steph the rest of the game and stuff. You start him for 4 or 5 minutes or something. But Chris Paul, Steph, Clay, Draymond, Looney. I think that's your. I mean, I guess you got to go Wiggins. Yeah, maybe you won't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. I mean, they still have to re-sign.
Draymond.
What's his name as well? They still have to re-sign Draymond.
I love that the Sacramento Kings are making a play for Draymond. I think that fucking rules. I think that rules for them.
Would be funny. Yeah.
Just on the Wizards of that Porzingis trade, would love to find a way to get DeLon Wright out of Washington in the event that Harden leaves. I think him and Melton are similar-ish players. DeLon is a better creator. Just a good player. And can do some stuff, and having more guys, and he really has improved as a shooter over the last few years. And he did, as we talked about, won me a fantasy championship. Had 4 steals on the last day of the fantasy playoffs and helped me beat John Gonzalez. Thank you very much, Delan. He's a good player. And they have a glut of point guards with, Tyus and Monte and all that stuff.
2 notes on former Sixers. One, we're late to this, but we had stuff going on. What, you may ask, is the Sixers did not have a draft pick and have not signed or released anybody? I don't know. But Lou Williams retired. 17 years was his career. Won 3 Sixth Man of the Year awards, which is tied with Jamal Crawford for most in NBA history. He has an NBA record 13,396 points off the bench, which is 2,100 more than Crawford. And he also is the guy that hit my favorite shot ever that I saw in person, which was I was there for the Easter 3 over the Heat, was dating my wife at the time, put her in a headlock, smacked her ass after it happened. So excited. I was yelling at Heat fans. It was a very cool moment. I actually think Lou Williams became a really, really good player. And I think he is like a little underrated. And I would consider Lou Williams for the Hall of Fame, actually. I think he is one of a very few players who are so identified with that role. Like, it's really like him and Crawford and Ginobili who are the archetype of that. And he had a really nice career, became a really good player.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I like guys that become so different later in their career than they are at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like coming into the, obviously came to the NBA out of high school, kind of like a Larry Hughes type, as far as a partner for Iverson goes. And was just sort of like running around, jumping, taking a shot. And then really, as he got older, like settled into being deliberately slow.
Yes.
And
made him harder to guard.
And like whether it's pick and rolls with our guy Montrez or that little like step back to his left that you just couldn't do anything about. He became a really, really dependable player. And I think that just anybody with like a long career like that, where his skill set changed so much, or how he like buttered his bread changed. I really respect it. He was a hell of a player.
And then also in the former Sixer category, and I believe a former Sixer who has tweeted at you do you have is there a rivalry with you and Jonah Bolden? Wasn't there something with you and Jonah Bolden?
Yeah, he tweeted at me as I forget what he said exactly, but I might have made a comment about how he did shoot the heaviest ball in NBA history.
Right.
It wasn't even supposed to be responding to it. He responded to a tweet of mine with some level of knowledge of like who I was, and seemingly to think that I was a hater type of his.
Right. Which
and
you weren't.
That just
you
wasn't
were
the case. I really wanted to believe as a 4-5 he could do something as like a skilled guy, but he just wasn't good. He just was not good. And then he retired to do crypto stuff, and that obviously worked out really well. And now he's back playing Australia basketball.
Per ESPN, after more than 3 years away from professional basketball, Jonah Bolden is ready to reintroduce himself. Bolden was 2 years into an NBA career when he decided to take a hiatus from the sport at the start of 2020, disappearing from the Australian basketball conscience. He used that time to focus on off-court ventures, his young family, and maturing. But recently, he got the itch to dive back into the pro sports ecosystem and make the most of his potential in his 6'10" athletic frame. That will be as member of the Sydney Kings, with the Australian forward signing a 1-year deal with the back-to-back defending NBL champions raised in Sydney. Bolden will play on a home court, Kudos Bank Arena. That's a less than 10-minute drive from his former high school. It was January of 2023, around his 27th birthday, when Bolden started getting back in swing of things on the court. I was getting back on the court, having some fun runs with guys, and then being around it a bit more, I got that itch and wanted to come back into the professional environment, using my potential and having fun with it. I'm not joking. Initial contact was 3 or 4 years ago, Chris Pongrass, the Kings CEO, told ESPN. That got shut down pretty damn quickly when he was an NBA player. This is someone you keep tabs on. He's a Sydney product whose father is a legend of the game, who's extremely talented. You always want the prospect of them returning. It wasn't until 3 or 4 weeks ago when it became a real possibility. So Jonah Bolden, high risk, high reward is as simple as it gets. If we can get him back to close to the player he once was, he's a top 3 or 4 or 5 player in this league without question.
Sure.
Has not played in 3 years. Obviously, all of his NFTs are now of very little value and needs a salary again, but we do wish him the best.
Sure. Had a lot of potential. Could have been better. Should have been better.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't.
So I did promise a new Body Bio promo code. Mike, it's not ready yet, I was told. So we're all going to have to wonder what the new Body Bio promo code is till next time. Right now, it's still Fire CJ.
I got my Gut Plus right here, in fact.
There it is. Yeah, there it is. Look at that. Gut Plus. Code Fire CJ for 20% off Body Bio. I mentioned to my wife this morning as I was putting socks on and got a cramp in my abdomen. I said, fuck. And she said, what? And I said, every time I forget to take E-Lite regularly, this happens. My cramps start up again. E-Lite is your hydration solution from Body Bio. It is only electrolytes. That's it. No artificial flavors, no artificial colors, no anything. You just put a drip of it in the water in the morning, in the evening, and it will balance your hydration. It's not just about water being hydrated. It's about electrolytes too. You don't need to drink shitty sports drinks to get your electrolytes. You can just use E-Lite. And Mike just showed Gut Plus, the only gut supplement you need. You can stop taking whatever probiotic you're taking. Gut Plus will help your body produce its own natural probiotics, which will do what they are supposed to do. Gut Plus uses a prebiotic to get rid of the bad bacteria, allowing your body to create the proper bacteria, the probiotic. Help you be more regular, help get rid of that bloat. I'm telling you, if you're going to take one gut supplement, it is Gut Plus. Use code FIRECJ, FIRECJ, for 20% off any order at bodybio.com, and sit and wait in excitement as what the next promo code will be, as it will debut next time. Mike, any guesses on the new promo code?
It's got to be about CJ. That's their market.
Wilson.
CJ types.
CJ, the CJ heads out there, of which Abby is one. Abby did all those stickers for Ricky X. Like half of them are fucking CJ stickers. The guy's not even on the podcast. The hard to stomach YouTube comment of the week. Y'all can't stand Harden, and yet he's still in the fucking intro. It's getting harder and harder not to skip it. CJ, any comments about James Harden still being in the intro, even though we're campaigning for him to leave?
Yeah, I'll work on it. I'll get some fix. I don't want to remove him. Then he's back, and then what are we doing?
Right.
We're constantly telling CJ to tweak the intro.
Yes. Yeah. Most of our conversations are about that. Rights to Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. This comes from Shane. Greetings, Spike, Mike, and CJ. Hope all is well and you're enjoying the offseason. Basketball question. Without getting into the nuance and academics of the cap nonsense, can you help us with layman's explanation of why the Sixers wouldn't actually get all the cap space vacated by Harden walking? I keep hearing that if he walks, we wouldn't get to use all that cap space, but I don't get it. Approximately $40 million in cap space seems like a pretty useful tool in team building, but I keep hearing we won't get that if he walks. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor either. This is the way it works. Is the NBA salary cap is X. I don't know. It's like 120 million, whatever it is next year. You can go over that number to sign your own players. So you can be over the cap. But if that player walks, you would only get the space under the cap. The Sixers would still be over the cap and would only have a $12 million exception to spend if Harden walks. So if they were under the cap, if the cap was say 120 million and Harden was, and they were right at it and Harden left, then they would get all 40 million, but they're coming from above it. So
yeah, I mean, if they trade Tobias into someone's space, essentially for nothing, then they would be under the cap and then be able to sign somebody to a large contract. But independent of that.
Non-basketball question. What is your stance on flip-flops? Are you in and out, thonged, or slides? Feels seasonal. Mike, you a flip-flop guy?
Yeah, casually doing little walks to the mailbox, to the trash, that situation. Definitely slides. I don't like
Yeah.
something in between my toes like that.
Yeah, it always hurts. No matter what I do, it always hurts in the toes. But if it doesn't have the little thing in between the toes, is it a flip-flop?
Yeah.
You would call a slide a flip-flop?
Yeah, it flips and flops.
I don't think it's a flip-flop unless it goes in between your toes. To me, that's a flip-flop.
Flop is the sound that it makes. It's not
aware.
That's not the toe thing has nothing to. I don't think is irrelevant.
I don't think it's irrelevant though. Curious to see whether we've come up with our next controversy. I don't think a slide like the Adidas slides that I wear at the gym into the shower, those are not flip-flops to me. They're slides.
They're definitely flip-flops. Slides only became like a term in the last like 10 years.
Okay, but
prior to that, flip-flop and those kinds of type of footwear were around forever. It is a flip-flop is anything that you can just slide into and it flips and flops. 100%. And then you can say a slide or a thong sandal is sort of underneath them as sort of types of flip-flops.
I don't know.
It flips and flops.
I don't know if I agree.
It flips and flops.
I'm going to think
flips
about it.
And it flops.
A lot of a fish flips and flops. That's not a flip-flop.
Okay.
I got you there.
I guess we'll entertain if a fish is a flip-flop.
The Webster definition does
of
have
a flip-flop.
Fastened to the foot by a thong. So I think it does need to have that.
Who gives a shit about Webster, CJ?
Merriam-Webster, it's the gold standard.
If I asked you, hey, pass me my flip-flop, and it was a slide, you wouldn't be like, what?
Well,
what are you talking about? It's a flip-flop. It flips and flops. You slide your feet into it. It's all the same.
I don't think so. 833 Lickface is the number.
What up, Spike, Mike, and CJ? Nick from Atlanta. Shitty thought enter my brain, and I haven't been able to shake it. I am terrified that not only is Daryl going to re-sign James Harden, but he's also going to trade Maxey and Tobias for Paul George. And we're all going to have to talk ourselves into the most loser energy big three of all fucking time. Daryl, listen to me, man. Please don't fucking do it. If love the pod. Peace, guys.
Yeah, I'm beginning to, over the last week or so, if you're intent on doing Harden stuff for more than a year.
Oh, you're back in on trading Maxey.
Well, it's not. It's just I just don't think that I don't want to do that. I want Harden to walk or do a sign and trade or some fucking anything.
He's not gonna.
But to go back into a Harden Maxey guard rotation is just tough because like they just don't defend enough. And I'd rather have bigger guys that can make up for more athletic guys. I don't want to trade Maxey. I don't want to do that. I want to keep him. I want him to be the point guard. I want him to get better as a distributor. I want him to have all of those reps. But it's, I don't know. I'm interested to see, you mentioned like there's a real chance that Paul George will be tough. He's a really good player. He's really, really good. And he's gotten like less of a loser over the last few years. I think that should be noted.
He has become more hurt over the last few years as he's become less of a loser.
For sure.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the idea that the lineup could be the very, pretty similar or exactly similar to the lineup they lost game 6 and 7 to Boston in pathetic fashion. And that really puts a lot on it was Doc's fault and Nick Nurse is going to be better. That really is the essential bet that they would be making. And I'd be excited to see it. It
would be a nice turn of events for all of us for it to have actually been Doc's fault.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I would rather them make personnel changes. I think there are ways to improve the team that don't involve just running it back. And obviously, somebody else has to agree to deals that we would find favorable and all that stuff. But I would love to hop into a quick reality where they do run it back and it's just Nick Nurse is the only real difference. And we see like, okay, what does this look like? And then I can go like, okay, now I know that, and I'm getting out of this reality, and I'm going to a reality where actually personnel stuff changes.
Yeah.
But I would be interested in it, at least in theory.
Yeah, man, isn't that a big three that we will definitely talk ourselves into?
Oh, absolutely.
If it happens,
and
for
we should.
Sure.
If it's Harden, Paul George, Embiid, you absolutely should talk yourself into it.
If they don't get to the finals, they're all fucking losers. They should all be remembered as losers because from a talent standpoint, those guys should be in the finals.
Yeah, the problem with Paul George, he's pretty old now.
Is he 31?
He came out in 2010, which was the first draft that I covered in person. That's the Evan Turner draft.
Oh my God.
I
He's
interviewed
31?
Paul George at the NBA draft media day. He was taken in the 10th
33.
overall there.
He's 33. Oh wow.
Yeah. We are he's a couple months younger than me. And I don't have much potential left. So he would be in the Embiid would be the youngest of that big three. And also, as like Zach Lowe has been talking about, they are owed an extension soon.
Yeah.
So Paul George is really he has a player option for not this coming season, but the following season, for $48.8 million, and he could just be like, I'm only going somewhere that will give me the 4-year max or whatever, 5-year max, and so that'd be tough to give somebody that's 33 years old, who has a history of getting hurt, that much money. So I would be surprised by it. I think if they trade Maxey and Tobias, it's going to be for somebody that would be on the better side of 30.
Well, that's not the style around here. At least 34, I think, is the acquisition age we have to have. This comes from Moses from Boston, Rights To Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. Voting for the 2023 ESPYs is now open, and I just voted for Nikola Jokic for best NBA player over Butler, Tatum, and our very own Embiid. Who are Spike, Mike, and CJ voting for? If it's not Embiid, do you feel a slight tinge of guilt? I do.
I've never voted in an ESPY.
I didn't know you could vote in the ESPYs. You would have to vote for Jokic for this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
If everything's all considered, he was runner-up for MVP, and then he won Finals MVP.
I truly don't have to vote in the ESPYs. I don't feel like a civic responsibility to the ESPYs to make my voice heard. But
well, then you can't complain if you don't
I won't
vote.
complain.
Okay.
I won't.
All right.
I won't.
You're part of the problem.
I don't feel like I'm part of the problem. I feel like the ESPYs don't apply to me.
Oh, wow. Well, that's what non-voters say.
And no matter who wins the ESPYs, it's not going to make a fundamental difference in my life in any way.
Because you're in California, your vote doesn't matter.
No. No, but I think Jokic is. Yeah, Jokic is. He has been the best basketball player for the longest period of time at this point.
Non-basketball question. I just and this might be a CJ question because I have not gotten up to this, and you have not, as we were talking about in the intro. I finished watching Black Mirror season 5 last weekend. Could not help but notice that one of the main characters from the final episode, titled Demon 79, looks like a beefier version of Shake Milton with an afro. Can somebody on the Ricky who's seen the episode please confirm? CJ, have you seen this episode? I have not gotten to it yet.
No, I've only watched the first 2 episodes. I'm looking at it now. Maybe a little bit.
I don't know. I guess we'll have to watch it and tell. 833 Lickface is the number.
Hey, Spike, Mike, CJ, and Daryl. AJ from Massachusetts one last time. It is a basketball question. Are the 76ers the Dallas Cowboys? Can't get past like the first or second round of the playoffs. We're so fucking excited about them every single year. Eventually, we talk ourselves into it. We talk a lot of shit. And then the Celtics are basically the Eagles and lots more success. We fucking hate them. I don't know. Delusional thoughts. Bye.
It's a really sad thought that I think it would be hard to not notice some sort of similarities between the Sixers and the Cowboys.
I disagree. I think that there are plenty of teams in all sports that disappoint in the playoffs in the way that the Sixers do. If you're just looking at it from like a wins and loss, like how far do they go in whatever playoffs. The Cowboys are a specific team because they are like seen as America's team and significantly more covered than any other team in football.
Dak puts up tons of regular season numbers, can't bring his team through in the playoffs.
I just think that the Sixers are so unlike the idea of like we gotta. They're so good for ratings, like, and everybody loves them, and everybody loves to talk about it. Like, it's not quite there, and it'd be maybe more connected to like the Lakers, obviously, as far as a glamour franchise go, or the Celtics. I don't like hearing that the Celtics are the Eagles. Even just hearing the phrase makes me upset.
833 Lickface is the number.
What's up, Spike, Mike, and CJ? This is Noah from Philly. Just sitting here listening to Mike and Zoe talk about the two-way guys that it'd be nice to grow into a role player, and just thinking about Isaiah Joe. Really disappointed he's not here right now. A guy that we seemingly all liked, thought had talent and value at this level. And it would be remarkably nice to have a shooter and solid guard off the bench that could contribute, especially if we're going to, unfortunately, bring back the beard. I like Daryl. I think he's done a generally good job, and I find myself defending him more than I wish I was. But I just don't think it's a thing that's talked about enough. I think it's probably more on Doc and the fact that he probably just told Daryl to fuck himself, that he was never going to play him and whatever. Like, I don't really know a position I put Daryl in. But, like, at some level, you're the GM, or president of ops. Like, throw your balls on the table and do something.
Of the two guys they let go, Bassey and Isaiah Joe, I'm not scared of whatever Charles Bassey will become. I do have a little bit of fear of Isaiah Joe that he's actually going to be good.
Yeah, Bassey is incredibly replaceable. There's a million of those kinds of guys. I think he is an NBA player and will be. The fact, like, look, the problem, sometimes guys don't play, right? You can't, the Sixers' problems last season were not like role player depth, was not the issue. But as we talked about, like, Isaiah Joe, he had proven at that point that he had real NBA potential to be like a meaningful shooter. And they got nothing for him. They waived him for nothing. And then watched as he had a pretty successful season with the Thunder. And the Thunder look really, really good, by the way. I'm fucking loving what they're doing over there. Cason Wallace is going to be really, really helpful as a player. To just not get anything for him is just part of this deterioration of assets, of stuff to trade. If they had gotten a second round pick in this draft for Isaiah Joe, then you go like, okay, have to move it along, have to kick the ball down the field.
But literally a roster spot they didn't use. They
never used the roster spot. Dwayne Dedman was used for that roster spot eventually. But you can't give interesting young guys away for nothing. And that's what they did. They at least got to get a second round pick out of it. And it just feels like organizationally, for too long now, since 2016, they've just been like giving shit away, getting 80 cents on the dollar for a lot of stuff. And then now that's why they had no picks in this draft. That's why they have no real anything to attach in a Tobias trade except for Maxey or Springer. And you're like, what else is there? What else is there to do? And it's just too many times where that's happened. I will say now that the draft is over, they can trade another pick. They have their 2024 pick. They have the Knicks second round pick. Because our pick, once again, was forfeited in some light Daniel House tampering. But yeah, it's
so they can trade 24 and 29.
I think so, because I think they can trade. They're down 25 and 27. 25 to Oklahoma City, 27 to Brooklyn. But
no, well then they can't trade 24.
You can trade it like on draft night.
You would have to trade it after you made the pick. They can't include it in a trade now.
Right. That's my understanding as well, but I think that's
maybe they can trade 31 now. Maybe they could trade 29, 31, but they can't trade 24. Because you can't trade picks in consecutive years without having a pick.
Someone told me that you can if it's this coming draft.
Interesting.
But I might
Daryl,
be
could you
clarify
that for Mike?
Because I believe that's how I felt also, was like, you can never trade picks in back-to-back drafts, like moving forward. But if it's the next one, maybe you could.
Daryl, if you're listening.
Hey, Daryl, it's Ben. I have a little statistic for you to write on your stupid little whiteboard in red expo
Kyle
marker.
Neubeck?
The Sixers have lost in the second round every year for the past 38 years. Thanks.
Would you think that was Kyle Neubeck under an assumed name?
It sounded a lot like Kyle Neubeck.
We're getting a lot of voicemails now also addressing Daryl. So maybe Daryl's replacing CJ in the greetings. I don't know. 833 Lick Face is that number. This comes from Tim. Speaking of Daryl, wrote to us at Rights to Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. Is Daryl officially a loser energy guy? He's married himself to everyone that is a former Houston Rocket, such as James Harden and the rest of these loser fucks. He seems like literally he cannot do anything unless he's met them before. If he keeps making loser moves, are we just destined to be losers? Like, what the fuck is he doing? Let me know what you think. The line there, he seems like he literally cannot do anything unless he's met them before, is very funny. Mike, your thoughts? Is Daryl loser energy or... Wow,
Hey,
are you considering that?
I don't know. We got to break through.
Wow, you're not closing the door on it.
No, I mean him and Harden and Embiid, like, and Doc, except for 1 year for Doc, like, those are guys that just like have never broken through. And if you've always been bad, then no one's gonna be like, I don't know, name somebody.
Anybody?
Like anybody's just always played for bad teams and been like a role player or whatever. Like Terry Rozier. No one's like, Terry Rozier is, role
Terrence
player.
Ross.
Like, yeah, no one thinks that really. They're just like, he's not equipped to be whatever, blah, blah, blah. But if you become like good enough at anything, like Harden, like Embiid, like Daryl, and then lose in, high profile fashion, then the spotlight on you for that losing becomes brighter. But I don't know. I don't think there's, as a front office, I think it's tough to have loser energy because you're not
right
seeing them like react instinctively in big moments. They usually get to prepare for it and think about it. So
for the last voicemail, I'm going to give you a choice. One is regarding Daryl Morey brain fog. One is regarding the Kawhi shot, and one is regarding Patrick Beverley. Which one would you like?
That's your call.
CJ, pick. Brain fog, Patrick Beverley, or what's that?
Pat Bev.
Pat Bev. All right, let me find it. Now I got to find it. I've been sitting on this one for a while. Here we go.
You see, Ron, I was just listening to a pod. It took me a couple of weeks to get back to it after the embarrassing defeat this year. I listened to the pod and I'm finally caught up, or I'm still a couple behind, but I listened to Mike talking about we might be signing or end up with Patrick Beverley, something like he can't shoot, he can't dribble, can't do a damn thing, but we might end up with him. Remember that time we used to talk about having a decent team meant everybody would want to play for us, and we were looking for how many all-stars will want to come and play with Embiid, and now we're to the point of expecting the lower tier level guys who shouldn't even be in the damn league anymore coming with us? How low have we sunk? This is damn ridiculous now. Non-basketball question. What's the sorriest player you think we're going to sign this year? I think it's James Harden. How about you?
He was so... I mean, it's just a reality check, I think, in a lot of ways. That who do you think the worst player we're going to sign is, Mike?
It's a little bit like you had the idea of like winning the lottery.
Yeah.
And you're just sort of sitting on a pile of money, paying for all of it for years and years.
Yeah.
And you just like, I could do whatever I want. I'm paying for all the fancy shit.
Yep.
And then eventually you're like, I don't have any money left. I spent it all. And that's kind of where the Sixers are. And they're like, we can afford one slightly used Patrick Beverley.
Yeah.
Yeah, the names have degraded.
Yeah, for sure.
Over time.
All right. Well, free agency and the Harden decision is a mere 5 or 6 days away. It's likely my guess for you is that it is going to likely be just like James Harden resigns and everything else is the same, and maybe the Sixers sign one guy or something. But I think we have a pretty quiet couple of months in store for us. We will be noisy, but I think overall we have a pretty quiet couple of months.
It's just interesting because the Nick Nurse part of it, of like coming here, signing here. What did he think? Like, it's such a different experience of like, I'm signing with the Sixers to coach a team with James Harden. I'm signing with the Sixers to coach a team without James Harden. It's just like a wildly different thing. And maybe just the money was right and Embiid's here and he's like, good enough. But I wonder what he expected and what him and Daryl have talked about. And obviously, like, what they said publicly was not that. They're just talking. They're just getting past the question. So it's like what the actual answer is of like, did you expect him to be here when you signed, or did you not? And yeah, all that stuff.
All right. We will talk to you next time. Are you done with TTP?
Yeah. Lick face.